Hello, my name is Marcus and welcome to Tabletop Reviews, where today I'm having a look at Endless Winter. A game that is supposedly the best game of 2022 according to many people on the internet I've seen. Let's talk about that in here. But not only am I going to have a look at that, I'm also having a look at the Rivers and Rafts expansion, the Ancestors expansion, and the Cave Paintings expansion. And of course the Canine Familiars, the Aurora Borealis, and the other modules in here, the Squirrel and Knot, the Yeti modules, the Mammoth module, and the last module, which is where you have those one. I can't remember what that's called. I can't remember what it's called right now. Okay, doesn't matter. All of the modules, all the expansions, everything that came this game through the Kickstarter on the second to highest pledge level. I believe it was the Shaman pledge. Yeah, setup for this is going to be a little bit different because normally I would just set the camera up, set up the game, talk about what I'm doing. This setup takes so much space and such a long time. That's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the base game, talk about the setup of the base game, talk about the gameplay of the base game. Then I'm going to turn off the camera. Then I'm going to set up the Rivers and Rafts, talk about the setup of that and the gameplay changes. Set up Cave Paintings, talk about the setup, talk about the changes. I'm not going to show you, I'm just going to talk about it because there's so much to this and it takes so much space. I mean, just to show you, I have this little red table right here and I have to use this. Like, we have to use this. We put it like down here in the middle of the table, like right there, and we need to have some things on that one. It's you can't have it because it's low down, but we have to do that because otherwise it can't be on the table. It takes that much space. Sure, I could clean out something over here, but then you just have to pull up here. This actually kind of works a little bit better. So let's get to the setup and then we'll talk about everything within this game. So this is the game setup for 2 players. Now I'm going to clean up that part of my table to have it all on the table, but this is for the effect of it. This takes up a lot of space. And a kit. Anyways, this is the main board right here. Well, first off, you have an elephant on number 1 because it's the round number 1, and then 2 and 3 and 4, and then you have eclipse phases in between, of course. Then you have these little rune tokens which you can get throughout the game. There are 3 in a 2-player game, there are 5 in a 3-player game, and there are 6 in a 4-player game. This is what these symbolizes. As you can see, 3 and 4 men. These, of course, just randomly drawn out, but I have to say some are clearly better than others. And then you have the action spaces here. We'll get to those in just a second, what they do. We have a little ranking order here. This is player order. So at the start of the game, which I'll show you in a minute, it is randomly distributed, but then throughout the game at eclipse phases, it might change. Again, I'll show you in a minute. We have some score trackers, which has a lovely 100 on the other side. That was flipped the other way around, in case you get more than 100 points. Then we have a card area right here. We have some of these worker types here. By the way, I've not checked out what these things are called because I don't care. Anyways, there's 6 different types. 4 of them correspond to 4 worker placements, and the 5th one, the Shaman, has just a special ability. I'll get into. Well, actually, let's just take what they do. So what I mean by that is, in the base game, this guy, if you take this animal part, you get an extra hand, right? That's a kind of an extra one at the mountains, an extra one on this one, an extra one on this one, all corresponding up here. And the Shaman has just the ability of turning an axe into 2, well, 1.5. Of these one, which is like a workforce. As you can see on worker placement spots, you usually need these ones to do an action, so you get like extra for doing that action. Then we have some arrow cards right here. This is arrow 1. As you might notice up here, it changes to arrow 2. It's the same with this one. This is arrow 1, arrow 2. So as the game progresses into 3rd and 4th round, you get some different cards down here, some different abilities up there. They're supposedly stronger, and they are as well, mostly. That's as the game progresses on. Then we have animals right here. I start the game, it's set up with the player card +1. I've set it as a 2-player game. Just some animals to be filled out here. You can get throughout the game. They have some abilities and some points. We'll get into that in a second. And then sort of 2 totem trackers. One, which is going to, depending on how high you go, give you points for resources you have left at the game. And this one here is going to give you points based on where the other opponents are for buried cards up here. Again, we'll get into that at like final scoring. Then we have over here, we have some monolith tracker. This is just a basic setup, the first game setup. There are some different ways to set it up, which involves them like being put in ways like that or something. But it's just the basic setup for the first game. And then we have this one, which is like Discovery Track or whatever. There's so much. We have a base camera here in the middle, and the rest is like random distributed. Again, how many glaciers and these ones you have depend on player count. And then it's just randomly distributed around in a sort of a pattern like this. Get into that how that works in just a second. And here then we have some player setup. I have red and purple, of course. This is the cards that are randomly distributed to determine player order to start. This is the first player, and this is the second player, and he gets also a meat bonus. Third and fourth also get a meat bonus. This right here is a starting card and a starting animal and starting resources. I'll check down here. So your starting hand is always your tribeswoman and your brave, then whatever card you got. See, this one got the other right there. And an animal here, that blue one, and then the resources to start. And then you draw up 2 random. These are the 2 randoms that were drawn up by this person for this starting play. Then you have all your things set up here, your tents are here, your buildings are here. This is your resource trackers, your workers, I'm just putting them over here. And then you have your monoliths down here. This is room for those runes I talked about. Those things, they can be put right there. And let's get into how a game works. Red is of course going first. So, at the start of the game you're going to pick as many cards as you want from your hand to play. So let's just say this person plays, well, every single goddamn one of them. So this one, let's just change a hammer for a monolith. So you can place a monolith. I'm gonna grab these 2. Let's say he did that, right? He changes a hammer. And then he places a monolith down here. Now, the grey ones are the only ones that can place in here. Place it here. And what those red arrows that are on it mean is that you get to place another one. That's why I grabbed both of them. And, well, he just exchanged the hammer. So let's say he goes in and grabs a hammer, which also allows him to go some different places up here. And he gets his hammer back. Great. Now what I do to kind of symbolize that they're used is I throw them out, but you would actually just have them put up here, right? So up here to show these are the cards that you have in active play. Yes, anyways. Then, you know, the purple guy also plays, but let's just skip the pen. He will take a worker and place it up here. Now let's just go through, that's my hand, go through what the different placements starts. So this place, at the top you have this action. You can do it as many times as you want. Exchanging a hammer and a workforce thing to get one of these cards, which is one of these cards right here. This is any pick up to your hand. You can do that as many times as you want, drawing up and putting them in your hand for next turn. They also grant 1 in-game point. Then you have the second one. This is a one-time use only. You can exchange 1 meat to get one of those cards in your discard pile. So you take one of these ones, you put in your discard pile here. Then when you have to draw but can't draw, you shuffle your discard pile. That's how you get those cards in play. And you will bury a card. Burying a card is any card from up here or in your hand. Right now we don't have any in hand. Let's say we take the tribe card, tribesman card, and we bury it. Bam. Bury them there. And you have this right here. This is how you stand in your way. This is a special bonus for the first player to take this action. Right. This is moving a totem. He's over here. Let's say he moves this one just to, now he's in front, now he gets a bonus. And then he gets to bury another card. Yeah. Let's say he took this one over here instead. This one exchanges 3 of your hand symbols to an error card. So this is one of these ones, that's how you get these. It's just onto your hand, let's just say it grabs this one, whatever. He has that on hand now. The second one is exchanging the price. The question mark is there because you see down here, the first one costs 1 and 1, and the second one 1 and 2, 1 and 3. But basically gets to buy one of these up here. He does that, brings it down here, he pays the cost. Bam, bam, one of those. Places it down, you can see here, he then immediately gets to bury a card. Now, barrett, let's just say that. The next one is you get 1 in your discard pile, and then 1 into your hand, but it costs a little bit more. I could then do that in the Eclipse phase. And then the last one is he gets the bonus there. This over here is movement. So let's say he places 1 for a hammer and he moves 1 for the hand. That's over here. That is your tents down here. And what you will notice is a new number. So every tent you use, you get to have access to more meat. So you can place it down for a hammer, you can then move it 1. This is like 1 movement, you know, 1 movement. And you can do that as many times as you want, place as many and move as many as you can afford. Then for 3 meat, you can add 3 tents, you can make a building. And just grab 2 more tents here. Now you can't place one on the base tile. You can place a building here, but let's say he was like this. He can exchange 3 of his meat, that's all of his meat, whatever. And he places the building here. And then he gets all of his tents back down here, ready to start over. But now he's gotten rid of running his building, and he's shown something for the eclipse phase. And then the final one is he gets to place and move 1 tent as a bonus down there. Up here we have, oh boy, animals. So you get, this means you get to flip over 2 cards. You flip over 2 cards top of the deck. Very nicely followed. This one is just simply drawing to your hands for a hammer and a workforce. So you can draw one of these ones. Well, actually, it's better to put the ground stuff for you right now. When you place them down here for your hand. Now that's in your deck. This one is flipping over an animal card. So let's have a look at an animal here. So first of all, if you want to focus this down here, it points based on how many you have. So if you have 4 plus, it's 10 point, 3 is extra, and yeah. And this, if you flip it over, that's the bonus. You get 1 tool and 4 meat for this one. Now, the thing is, that would be pretty bad because you will waste 2 of your meat. You can't just exchange them around. But all of them have different abilities. For example, the mammoth just fills out your meat. That's what that means. So here would just be 2 meat, but it will fill it out. This, what's that? Cryptodon moves 1 on these tracks, of course, and then 3 meat. And they all have different various abilities, and of course, sets of the same gives you more points. And last one here is simply drawing the top animal of the deck. Oh, that's a ground sloth. That's pretty lucky. Now we got 3 ground sloths. Yay! So those are the worker placement actions, and what these are, and what these are, and what these are. Just about. Then let's say we move on to the eclipse phase. First thing you'll do is you will look at your hand. Now this guy doesn't really have anything except for this card, but all of your cards have an eclipse ability. Well, most of your cards have an eclipse ability, which means you play it in your eclipse phase to receive that ability. So this is bury a card, this is throw one of these in your discard pile, this is just get a tool. And you also add on all of this stuff. Because the one who has the most of your hand stuff is going to get initiative, right? So let's say it was purple, well, they would change around, and purple would now start for the remainder of the eclipse phase until the next eclipse phase, unless it changes around. So yeah, you do that, you count it up, take all your bonuses for this one, and it's time for some bonuses everywhere else. That doesn't have eclipse bonus, that's not involved, that's not involved, that's not involved. This is a little bit, this is mostly where you're going to get involved, so let's say this. So each of your set count as 1 influence on a space, and each of your buildings count as 3 influence. And whoever has the most influence on any of these squares are going to get the bonus. So this is 1 point. Just do that. Oh, I'm cheating here, just the 1 point. This is 1 tool, put that over. And this is placing 1 monolith. You know, grab a monolith. Look over here, get another tool. Bam, you know, he gets 2 tools. I'm just gonna place it because it's nice. And yeah, I mean this over here, of course, lets you move this one. This is 2 points. Monolith again, 1 point. 2 meat. Was that it? Yeah, I guess that's it. Those are all of the 6 ones. Yeah, the different 6 things you can have there. Going onto your player board, you have a bunch of stuff in here. So first of all, you score this. So this would be 2 points per building on these tiles, which actually has 1 off, so that would be 2 more points. Yeah, these do nothing. It's only if you have bought these ones. Then over here, eclipse phase, you get to draw a card. Yay! It's a Tribesman, yay! And you get 1 tool. Oh boy, I'm out of breath. So that's what you get in eclipse phase here. And then up here you have the eclipse phase here, where in player order you get to choose any of these. You can always choose a lesser reward. So this guy gets to place a monolith, this guy gets to draw a card. You can always go down the track and choose one of these down here instead. Once everybody has gone through their turns, you take your workers back. Whee! You fill out if the error cards down here are empty, and also you make sure that The player count plus 1 animal cards in here. 4 right now, so that's more. But it's okay, there's more. There's allowed to be more. This is the minimum. Oh boy. You discard all these cards you've used. And you draw 5 new cards from the deck. Which right now is 4. Which right now for this guy only has 4, which may mean you shuffle that one and get it back in. One worker placement spot I forgot to mention is this one right here. Place it here. This is a rest action. Then you get to draw a card, flip over an animal tile, and for the eclipse phase, you have 1.5 extra workforce. So you know it's a little bit for the eclipse phase a bonus. Alright. Now if you reach 3rd round after the eclipse phase, it's new era. Now you only have access to these 4 up here, and you will also replace these cards right here with the Era 2 deck with flipped over. I'm not gonna show that. Anyways, now let's take some endgame scoring, because that's basically all there is to this game. This over here, depending on how high you're on your track, you get points for your tools. If you reach this one, you get 1 point for every 4, 1 point for every 3, 1 point for every 2, 1 point for 1 to 1 exchange. This one is just who is the highest gets the bonus. So in a 2-player game, we'll only do these 2 here. So the top player would get this bonus for these amount of cards. Second, this, and in a 3-player game, it's this bonus. And I believe in a 4-player game, just the 2 remaining get this one. So count those up, then you take all the cards you have down here and you count up the points that are on them here. Doesn't matter if they're in your discard pile, in your draw pile, in your hand, in your here. Count up all those points. Right now, of course, there would only be 2 because we only added 2 cards, but you might have a lot more. And you count up, of course, animals, which right now this is 3 of these ones. It would be a 6-point bonus. And then whoever has the most amount of points when you've counted all those bonuses is the winner. Now, let me just quickly set up some expansion. Well, let's start off with some modules. Alright, I've set all the modules in the base box up here. So let's start over at this place. So first of all, you have the mammoth. Now it takes 2 tent movements. Every time you move a tent twice, you could move this one wherever you want. You could move it up here. And now, this and this is being disputed between these 2. Because it adds influence depending on the round you're at. So round 1 it's 1 influence, round 2 it's 2, and so on and so forth. So right now, this guy's not being disturbed. But at round 3, he would lose the bonus for these ones. He would have to do something. This is kind of a way to go around and disturb your opponents. Let's just grab a tent for this next one. Because these things, glacier tokens, every time you move a tent onto it or just, past it like that, you flip it over. And it shows some form of a bonus, which if you build a house on there, let's say build a house there, get the bonus. This is drawing an animal card into here and then picking an animal card from it, but this could vary variously. Move a tent across it, build a house, get that bonus. Just a little added bonus down there. Let's just quickly take these ones. So first of all, we have the squirrel and nut. So these 2 go together. The nut scores -5 if you don't have the squirrel, but 8 points if you do have the squirrel. And its flip ability is replacing it with any other animal card. Now the squirrel has an eclipse phase where you flip over 2 cards and then pick 1. And those of course go together. You have the Yeti here, which has the eclipse bonus of scoring a point for all of these, which are these of course. Yeah, now this Yeti you're just shuffling between the animals. The squirrel and the nut you flip in top and bottom halves of the deck. The Aurora Borealis, Jesus Christ, are cards that will be put at the bottom of your deck at the start of the game and then just be played like normal. They have individual bonuses. This one is about era cards, but all of them have a different thing that they do, so we're adding a little bit of additional powers to each individual player. You have the canine familiars right here. 4 different canine familiars, which as you see here, contains bonuses for these parts, or just give you a point in the eclipse phase. When you take your rest action like this, instead of drawing a card from your pile, you can take whatever one you want of these ones. Free picking. And as we are on the rest action, before, during or after your rest action you can take these. This is a rest token. This one gives you a monolith, this one gives you an error card. So, and you take the top one and then you put it on the bottom once you've done it. Or you can just simply say, I don't want that one, and see what the next one is. Now the rules do say that they actually have to be face down and only the top card revealed, but it's easier that way. Now they all flipped over. And finally you have this one. This is the ceremonial grounds. This is again number of players +1. At the end of the eclipse phase you can choose any one of these ones to take. You take it and you'll put it on top of your ceremonial ground, on your burial ground it's called, and you are no longer allowed to bury cards. And then, well, this card will score you 1 point for every tool and 1 point for every meat, but they will all have a scoring condition which is happening right here, right now. And you are not allowed to bury cards for the rest of the game. Alright. Did I mention all of them? I think that's all the modules that are in the base box that are not solo play. Now let's set up an expansion. Alright, this is the Ancestors expansion. It actually adds individual modules. It says 3 of them, but let me show you all of them. First of all, you have new Era 1 and Era 2 cards. These would of course just be shown then with the Era 2 deck, and Era 1 deck is just to show them. But what they all have in common is they give you one really good thing and then give your opponents a good thing, right? Like 8 meat to you, 4 meat to them. You get to place 2 and move 2, they get to place 2. You get 4, they get 2. And the Era 2 cards are a bit different, as you get to do an action and then for -2 points all your opponents get to do the same action. So if you're the leader, these are good for you because it means you get maybe lead a bit more. But if you're not the leader, you could just give your opponents a good action. And then we have all new of these cards here. So we have a healer and we have a storyteller and we have these ones. And they, of course, the same way, every time you visit this specific place, you get to do this thing. This time, instead of giving you some extra hands, you can exchange a hand to do some action. And of course, do you want to do it or not? That's up to you. And this is the bonus of the healer. And it has all new animal cards. This is an example of a terror bird and a mastodon. And if we look down here, they're of course 1-to-1. So this player started with the blue card, which was the Grand Sloth, but here it is the short-faced bear. This is not the same. And up here is, instead of saber-toothed tiger, it is the cave lion. And they are quite different, as they have stronger abilities for the most part here, and they don't score as many points. So it's very much, instead of getting a whole bunch of points, you can see, they don't score as many points. And the most important thing is they score in the eclipse phase, every eclipse phase, but they don't get as many points. So that's quite interesting, you know, rather than endgame bonuses of highly, you can score a few extra points in the eclipse phase. Or get, you know, meat and tools. Very different gameplay. And the thing, which I totally forgot to mention in the main game overview, which is that your individual chiefs, which is what determines this figurine, has an ability. And again, it is triggered by visiting a certain place, but you can get either 2 meat, 1 axe. It's the same for all of them, just different places. But these ones make them a different one. Different abilities here, a different ability there. I'm pretty sure this is also a different ability. Now the exchange is the same. It's 1 axe, 1 meat, but what you get from it is different. So you get a little bit more asymmetry that way. But that is basically just what the Ancestors module add. Ancestors expansion, I should say. Let's get to the next one. Alright, the cave paintings expansion. So let's talk about it. I'll just do a quick grab a red worker here. Because it adds a new worker placement spot right here. So if you place it here, you get to paint in as many spaces as you want that you can afford. Let's have a look down here. So you have this little cave that you're painting. You can have the basic mammoth, or you can have the little more special, your animal, right? Because the red are the bisons. And what do I mean by cost? Well, you can see here that here are the different colors, blue, red, black, and this is the cost of them. You pay this and you can paint them. You can do that on that space as many times as you want to get as many colored in as you, well, can afford, not as you want to. Every time you get a torch, however, you can remove one from this one. So you can make it, you know, only this one line is what they cost. Make it a little bit cheaper. If you filled all 3 and you still get a torch, you can take a totem thing instead. So that's nice. When you paint it in, let's say you can, when you paint it in, right? So let's say you could paint in here. And the second step, by the way, is this, which means paint as many lines as you want to. Just do that on this one because it's way easier to paint on it. So let's say I painted these ones here. Then now, as you can see here, I would have this eclipse bonus, a red dot and 2 lines. But if I paint it like this, got this one in, I would immediately take these 2 bonuses and then cross them out. Get one of those cards and place a monolith crossed out. And is of course dry erase, so it immediately just removes. And the final one down here is you get a torch and you get to immediately do the benefit of one of your legs. So if I had done this one, I could now get a red circle and 2 lines. For example. It of course also adds a monolith board here, which a bunch of bonuses which adds to, well, this. It's all about the expansion, right? And I've just placed it like this, but there are placement rules, of course, about making it. And I believe you actually make it a 5 instead of just a 4 basic. It's 5. It also adds these 5 Arrow 1 cards, which again has bonuses about painting. It's all about painting. It adds the painter up here. It doesn't have a symbol, so you can't start with it. Scores a point, and of course, again, you can paint it a little bit extra. You have a little bit extra to do. Always nice. It has the Harkerman horse, a new animal, which you will just shuffle in the deck, but it's here so I can show you. Again, scoring some point at the end game, and of course, if you flip it over, you get all of this. Really nice. Then it has the rest tokens, which with the one place up there, when you rest, you get to choose it. You get a torch. You have this one, the glacier token, which you place out. It is it's a black and 2 lines. And of course, every time you get this, that's what this symbol is. Just like up here, you can always choose a lesser reward. You get a black, but you need a red, you can choose a red. You get a black, you need a blue, you can choose blue. And of course, on this monolith, no, that's not the monolith board, sorry. You have a new time here at Eclipse, you get a torch. Or, you know, just a discount, or it's one of these. This is pretty decent. Those are all the other elements of the campaign board. Let's just quickly talk about the scoring down here. I'm a little bit confused by it, but it supposedly should be 1 point for every colored up dot in the outermost circles that are connected. So this would be like 1, would it be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 points maybe? I'm honestly a little bit confused by that, and the real book doesn't make it clear. But like 10 points they say is like a good score from this one, it's what they show. So I believe it's every dot that are connected on the outside. So yeah, those are the scores for that. Let's make the tokens there. That is the cave painting board. Let us move on to the final expansion. Alright, final expansion, Rivers and Raves. So it changes up this board completely. You have these 2 main boards. This one is the like main central board, which you always have to use. And you have these 2, where both of them have a place like this and a place like this. You decide how you want to turn them around. Adding either a 1 player, a 2 player like this, 2 of these like this one, or a 3 even of these landmarks. Each landmark has a scoring condition at Eclipse. I'll get into that in just a second. But you choose how many you want to play with, 1, 2, or 3. And then depending on how many you play with, you will add a glacier token. So if you play with 1, it's 0. If you play with 2 like this, it's 1. And if you play with 3, you have to add 2 of them. Finally, you place one of your own thing wherever you want, as long as it's touching 2 like this. Like this would not be legal placement. That is totally touching 1. This one touching 2. Place it wherever you want to, or just place them there just randomly. And then you have your little boat at the top here, and you want to get to this one, like moving down the river. Boy, okay, and then you have a bunch of 7 tokens in the middle. You have a new animal here, the Stellar's Sea Cow, which if you flip it over, you get 2 salmon, and it gets some points. I'll talk about the salmon in just a second. You have this card, it's all new, it's the Warrior. It has a new Eclipse ability, I'll just get into that in just a second. And of course, the 2 there. That's about that board. I forgot to clean that one up. I'll have to remember that. Anyways, what is it? Well, this is your new spawn, right? This is Bison spawn point tents. For a tent movement, you can also just move your boat one. Bam, and now it takes up an influence on the space where there's a salmon. You can move it all the way down. Otherwise, this is completely the same. 3 tent. Now this one also counts for its tent. So if you have a tent there and there, you can build a house right there, and you'll move your kayak back one to the start. Right. Now at Eclipse, you first of all, if you are on a salmon token like that, you'll get a salmon token, and then it's the same here. If you flip it over, you get 2 salmon tokens. And what they do is they have ability. This is just draw an animal card. There's also a tool and a token, and this one gives you 2 points, and then you reshuffle all the salmons. So you put all them back in, and you do a, and there we go. Bam. Also at Eclipse, each of these will score. On that black thing, if you have a tent on it, you'll get a point. So that's interesting. But you will get a point for every tent on it. But, you know, having one tent on there is fine. It's right next to another 1 point, so that's fine. But it's only tents. You can build a house there and get the points. This one has tents left on your board or something. I don't know. I would have to build the rules for that one. I haven't played with the volcano, I don't think. But it also gets your point for somehow, and all of them get your point somehow. They're in the Eclipse phase. And over here, the warrior with its all new symbol right here, this move your opponent. So for example, if you were here, your opponent was here, you could move him here, and now you're even. Because also during Eclipse phase, you get a point. If you're the closest down here, you get a point. For every tent owner or something, yeah, you get a point if you're closest. But now you're both close, you both score. So that's nice, that's an interesting way of using him. I think that's about what this one does. They say it's more complicated to play with more of these landmarks, but like, add the last landmark, add the freaking last landmark. Of course you can't play with glacier tokens then, but yeah, add the last landmark. Oh, by the way, of course it also adds a new scoring up here. It's a house on landmark tile, just score for that. Obviously they had to add that in. And I believe that is Rivers and Rafts expansion, and those are all the expansions, and I'm tired now because goddamn this is a thing. So let's end this overview with a look at Booty Booty Boo. Oh, he's tired, I think. Anyways, let's get back to the table and talk about what I think about the game. Alright, that's the setup. Hopefully it works out. Normally I actually film the setup first and then this part. Today I'm just filming this part first and then the setup whenever I feel like filming the setup, because it's so freaking much. So yeah, I mean, normally I don't really talk much about setup. I usually don't really mind the setup. It's perfectly fine, but setup in this game is actually keeping me away from playing it. Just the base game takes so much. I think the easiest is probably cave paintings or ancestors to set up again, and that's why I've probably played more than that. Rivers and Rafts I've played once, exactly once, because the setup is just too much. With this and adding this one in over as well, and even cave painting, it's just too much. I haven't really played with the expansions because it's too much, but I've played enough to talk about them and what I think about. Setup is just too much. Setup is keeping me away from this game. It really is. There's talked about, I think it's Unconscious Minds, which is coming from Fantasia as well. You know, the Kickstarter after this one. I'm just not looking forward to it right now. I thought, you know what, it sounds interesting. I'm gonna, let's see what it is, see what people are saying about it. After this one, I'm not looking forward to it because I'm just afraid that it's going to be way too much setup, way too much to do. Now, I'm gonna talk about this a little bit later, but I think the reason that there's so much in this game, because there's so much, and there's so much to set up. You have 15 different places to set things up. That's not true. But the reason for that is because any aspect of the game has nothing to it, so there needs to be more. Let's talk about gameplay. Gameplay, of course, in the base game. Let's talk about the base game first. Which also has modules in it. Jesus fucking Christ. The base game is a worker placement, of course. We primarily have 3 workers. You're placing around to do things on 4 different worker placements, but unless you choose not to place them, you can place them on your own little spot and draw a card and use an animal, right? It's pretty interesting. And you can, of course, get some more cards in that are going to benefit you, or you can get some error cards, which are way better benefits and points and stuff. You can bury cards, all these things in here. I like them. I think it's interesting that you start up there, do this as much as possible, then do this once, and then you get a bonus, which the bonus is of course the blocking of each other. Because we're normally in worker placement, you kind of block each other and go like, I've taken this on, now you can't. The bonus is the blocking here. I think that's interesting. Of course, Creative Comforts I've reviewed recently. I really like that one where you don't block each other. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. That part is actually fine. If they just develop this worker placement where you're going around doing these things a little bit differently, I think we'd have a better game on their hand, because that aspect is probably the one that I like the most. But then you have the camps over here, and that works better in with it, because you actually have a worker placement spot where you move the camps around, right? Try and move the camps around because they give you some bonus at the eclipse phase of the game, which is after the drawing has taken the round. So then it's a string. You should of course start off by playing cards, and the cards determine how many things you're going to do today and some bonuses you might get and all that. What I don't like about it is that you play all the cards at the first start of the round, but some of the cards are like, oh, now you can draw more cards or something, and all of a sudden you're standing there like, I have to wait a round. This very much comes to fruition in the fourth round, where you're like, okay, well, like this is just going to take a card because it's points at the end of the game, but I'm not going to be careful using it. So definitely, maybe you need like at the end play some error cards, or just before placing a worker you can play up to 3 cards or something like that. I think that would have been better. First of all, it makes you unpredictable. You can play down and show, this is what I'm going to do with my first worker. Now let's see. It also makes going second a little bit less bad, so to say, because you're not openly showing what you're going to do, and then your opponent can sit there and go, okay, I was going to use my second worker to go after animals, but I can see that you want that, so I'm going to use my first worker to go after animals and get that bonus, which is an extra animal, which is really good. Right, that way it's going second. But if you start off by like your opponent plays 3 cards and he goes tenting and he's like, with the camps, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go animals next then, and then you can go animals and be interrupt him a little bit. And it's like, okay, more interesting. You don't step on each other's toes. I mean, that can be good, but it's also just terrible. Then you have the monolith. I really sort of dislike the monolith board because you don't have a placement. It's all bonus actions that make you play the monolith, and that's fine. Honestly, most of the time we play all of our monoliths because it's just so that easy. That's another part of it. But I just dislike that you have something that is purely bonus actions, but is still that easy to do. Usually you get all of them, or maybe the last 2 haven't been placed. You get so many played throughout the game, but it's supposed to be like a bonus action. That needs to be lessened. Maybe you have fewer, and there's less ways of playing your monoliths, so that all of a sudden playing monoliths becomes a much stronger action. But right now it's just, it doesn't matter action. Moving around the tents or camps, as they're of course called, and creating a building. I think creating your buildings is the difficult thing. I've gone through games where you really got all your buildings down, but you're not doing a whole lot else because it takes 3 meat. That's quite a lot. You need to have all of them surrounding the area. So that is a strong action, that's a powerful action. What do you get for bonus for that? Drawing cards at the eclipse phase. Sure, round 1, 2 and 3, that can be good. Round 4, which is where you're usually going to get the last 1 or 2, last one. You don't have any in round 1. You're good if you have some in round 2. Round 3 and 4 are the ones where you're gonna get it. That's what that action is. It's just the worst, because you're just drawing cards. That doesn't matter. Those cards are already giving you what's called bonus points at the end. That doesn't matter. That is such a bad bonus. That needed to be a better bonus. Now the last one, of course, the track over there will go up. Either the burial grounds give you points, or the resource you have left gives you points. One is per resource, so every 4th resource, every 3rd, every 2nd resource gives you points. That's interesting to move up on. I haven't experienced getting many points from it because you're not going to get that many resources at the end, I don't think, because you're going to focus on a bunch of other stuff. I haven't, at least. Maybe some of people have. Burial grounds is capping at 7 cards. What the fuck? I get the thing that you are the furthest ahead and stuff, so therefore you are going to get more points for your cards. But that just needs to be like, if you're 4th you get 1 point, if you're 2nd you get 2 points, if you're 3rd you get 2 points, if you're 2nd you get 3 points, and you're 1st you get 4 points per card. That's it. That's it. That's how it needs to be. Because then it makes sense to bury cards. I've deliberately in games just not buried card because like I'm at 7 now. I'm going to get the maximum amount of points no matter how many cards I'm going to bury now. But if it was like that, I was like, okay, I mean, bury 2 more cards, and if I can get first, that's 8 more points. All of a sudden you have that way more interesting, the same as with the food. But this other way is just like once you reach 7, which is very easy because you start with a card which allows you to, in your eclipse phase, bury a card, and there's so many ways to bury cards. Burying cards is one of the easiest actions to take, I think. But you only need to take it 7 times, and then that's it. And you can focus on all the other things. It just doesn't make sense to have it like that. Then of course you have the error cards. The error cards are powerful cards, and they're difficult to get a hold of. They're not easy to get a hold of. For how they take 3 power, right? And that's not you get that usually every turn, but it's like, do you want to spend it all on that, or do you want to split it up on 2 actions? It's sort of in that ballgame. So it's not, error cards is definitely something where you think a little bit more before getting them, and I think you still end up with 4 or 5 cards, right? Like that's interesting, right? Even this one that feels so expensive, you're going to get quite a few cards from that one. And I think that's the thing with this one, is just it doesn't feel like there are any actions in here really that are worth more. They're all worth the same, and that's kind of bad. Because if you can pull off some actions to get, like it takes more, but also gives you more. But then in this one you feel like, okay, I mean building the house is difficult, but it doesn't really get me anything. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure it gives me higher influence and makes it, but doesn't really fucking matter that much. Like seriously, if you can just move around, you're going to be open. Now I will say, I've only played this at 2 and 3. I've not gone to four players. I was about to say 4 or 5, you can only play 4 players. I've not gone to 4 players, I haven't tried it at 4 players, so it might be different that way. But generally speaking, on the campsite, in a 3-player game, you sometimes interfere with one another, but you can quite easily spread out and not really bother one another. Especially because everyone is going to focus on it. Like one person takes it and has that bonus action. Usually it's the guy that starts with that guy. You know, the special warrior, they all have, and he's going to take that bonus action, and he's like focusing on it. He's way more down there. You are also going to have some camps out, maybe get a house, but you're not going to focus on it, so you're not going to be in each other's way. If you're 4, maybe you have multiple people focusing on it, trying to do it. Not a 3, I don't think, and a 2, it's even less. Like you don't bother each other. Usually you have enough on both sides of the board, like splitting down the middle, that you're not going to bother each other. So, doesn't really matter. The final one is the animals, and the animals is a very easy action to take. I mean, sure, it takes a hammer, which is probably more rare than the meat. But if you can get some hammers, get some animal cards, that's the best action. The action that I always score the most points on, and why I've won most of my games, is animals. I get so many points from animals. Upwards of 50 points from animals. That's a lot of points. That is a way fuck ton of points. I played against an opponent, he gets 74 points in total. I was over 100 because I get 50 points from animals. And I try to tell every time we play, remember, animals, get some fucking animals. And still, focusing on that, I managed to get high on the Burgrounds track, managed to bury 7 cards, managed to get quite a few monoliths on the board, managed to move a few camps around. You can do everything in this game, and that's bad. You don't focus on something. You just do it all, every round. Now something that changes that. Now let's talk about cave paint, because that adds a 5th worker placement spot, which is of course painting the caves. That I think changed up the game the most of these right here, because that adds a 5th place to be, a 5th thing to worry about. And I think when we play with the cave paintings, you actually manage to split it up. And some people focus on cave paintings and animals, some people focus on the animals and camps. And notice how you're still doing everything. Because this and monoliths sort of have the same feel, this and camps sort of have the same feel. So you split up attention, you can't do all of the things at once. This time you need to split your attention up between cave paintings and other things. So definitely a good expansion, which sort of kind of forces you to think differently about the game and do differently. What I was saying actually about the error cards, you really need to play with more than 2 players for those to Otherwise, you're just gonna see the top few cards, and that's it. There you need to play with more than 2. Definitely 3, and it's probably gonna be 4 before you see what that has to offer. Otherwise, you're not gonna see a whole lot of cards, I don't think. But cave paintings really does add to the worker placement, and really all of a sudden opens up the game more, and it feels like you have to think more about actions. They're still worth equal amounts. It's not like this is worth more or anything. But definitely think more about action. You think more, can I get a torch to get the things for cheaper? How do I paint? What do I get out of painting these things? You think more and more about it. And maybe you have one turn where you paint a whole bunch of stuff. Because of the first one, you can paint as many dots as you can afford. And then you can draw as many lines as you want. So that can really be, like, if you just power up for the second turn, don't play any cards the first one, have 10 cards for the last round, just poof, and in second round painted a whole bunch of shit. That could be a good tactic. I haven't tried that, I'm not going to try it because we'll get to that. But definitely cave paintings is the best expansion. The second best is Ancestors. Ancestors I don't like because it just brings in, first of all, it brings in all new animals, which are way worse. The animals are way worse. But then again, you score a lot less on animals in this card, so it forces you to think differently. I mean, yeah. The lowest scored games probably been the ones where you had played the Ancestors animals because they don't score as much. So that's interesting, they give you some different things. Interesting. Definitely interesting. You have all new, what's it called, people to get to it, and a few new error cards. Again, the error cards, if you shuffle them up, like we usually shuffle them up and put them like towards the top of it to make sure we get them. But if you just shuffle them up, you're not really likely to get them. What they do interesting is that when you play them, you get an action and everybody gets a little bit of a less action of that, but still they get an action, and it's usually a good action. So that's interesting. I love that. That should have been in the base game, because all of a sudden error cards mean something different. Score a few more points and do that, and all of a sudden you have some more interesting error cards in the first game. Maybe put them at only a cost of 2 actions. But yeah, but I dislike the new animals, I dislike the new workers. The error cards are good. I mean, animals are fine, it's just, you flip them over more, I think, but it's just, you're removing one of the more interesting parts. And of course you have glacier tokens and stuff in this one. I've completed after shortly everything, we'll talk about that in a second. And the worst of these expansions, I'm just going to say now, is rivers and rafts. You get a river that goes through your little camp sideboard, whatever. Don't care to look up what it's actually called. And you can get some landmarks in there, which score interestingly. That's fairly interesting. You can have up to 3 in a game, I think it was. And they say that it makes it more complicated. No, it doesn't. Just play with 3, because it's just 3 more ways to score points. So just play with 3. And you have each an individual starting ground. I think that's the most interesting thing, is you choose a place to start off with your camps, and it has to be away from the other ones. That's a rule, that you can't be next to each other. That's interesting, because that means you have some play area of the board to yourself in the first couple of rounds, but then you start mingling. Again, at a 4-player game rather than a 2-player game, which is the only one I've played this one in, let me just be angry, I've only played this 2-player. I played this 3-player, and this one only 2-player as well. Just being honest with you here. You are not going to interfere even less with each other in this one. So if someone is focusing on this, they're going to be very OP on that board very quickly. I like the salmon though. I really love the salmon. I think that and starting from different areas is the best parts about this one. The salmon is good because they're like a bonus you get for just being on there, and it can be random bonuses, but they're usually better than all the other spots. So that is very, very nice, I think. And then of course you have I mean, the landmarks, they're just boring, like scoring for these things and then like, okay, well I'm just gonna go score more points for doing what I would already do. I mean, the black, big black one, which I just love that was a component, like just a black square. That's a terrible way of scoring. You have to be on there and get you 1 point. Well, next to it is one where I scored 2 points. I'm not gonna fucking place one on there. I'm not gonna waste 2 camps on there when I can put one over here to get 2 points and then move it around to get different bonuses. I'm not gonna put 3 on there to score 3 points. If I can move 1 up here to get 2, 1 over here to get a monolith, 1 over here to get that extra point. So that one is terrible. But the other ones is like scoring for doing things you should probably do anyways. Most of them. I played with all except the tree, so Yeah, but so those really don't add anything, just gives you more points, which whatever, then maybe the person on the rivers and rafts can keep up with the person who's focusing on animals. No, you can't, you're not going to, I mean maybe, but as long as he's also on here, he's going to score a little bit as well, so like, it's not a catch-up mechanic for the animals at all, it's not good enough for that. And the river part with the kayaking, whatever, it's just another thing to move rather than your camp, and it does the same, except it's so limited in where it can move. I mean, I get it, put a river in it, but then just have more camps so you can move around on the board. Like, it doesn't matter with the river, with the raft people, man. That's bad, and the landmarks are usually just boring. I was amused by this one. And, I mean, yeah, sure, you're closer to the ending, so you get 1 extra point if you're closest. Okay, and then the salmons, which are a good part about it, I think. It just doesn't add a lot. Then you have all the modules, but you have the Yeti module, that's fine. It's another animal card that does something different, I like it. Squirrel Not promo module, again. I mean, this one says mix them in the top and the bottom half. So you might not, like, it's a risk if you take one of the two, because you might end up getting minus points. But it's, again, it's just 2 more animals doing something a little bit different, scoring in different ways. It's good. I like that, those 2 modules, that good. Then you have the Aurora Borealis. No, fucking Aurora Borealis, I think. That module I like as well. It's the bottom card in your deck, and then it's like just another card to use, and it's a pretty decent card. It does something decent. It does something different, right, from each other. So everyone has one individually. I like that. That's a good addition to the game, and again, it's just a really good module. Then we have the module which I just searched up what it was called. What is it called? It is called the Ceremonial Grounds module. I couldn't remember what it's called, but I do know what it is. You know, you have ceremonial grounds. When you pick those, you can't bury cards anymore. And all of a sudden, burying cards, right? Get to the 7 limit and then get that one, right? That's good. That's another good one because you're taking an effect. But it's a good thing. But again, if you're just going like 7 is the maximum, you can easily bury 7 cards and just grab a really good one of these ones to score a whole bunch of points, and then that's it. Again, if you were scoring per card in your burial ground, then we would be talking about a freaking brilliant module, because when do you stop? When do you have enough? But this one's just, okay, now I have 7, let's score some extra points. Yay! It's fucking stupid. But otherwise, I think it's really good. And with the Canine Familiars, which is some wolves you can get instead of workers, right? I think you get them, yeah. Which only have half one, but they have some good eclipse phase ones. So it's sort of, you get some of the eclipse phase, which is nice. I think they're a good addition. You just remember to take them. We will often forget to take them. But if you remember to take them, they're a good addition to the game, you know, for you to do something in your eclipse phase. Because sometimes you're sitting there like, eclipse or not, eclipse or not, eclipse or not, eclipse or not. This one is just eclipse. You're guaranteed to have something for your eclipse phase because they don't do anything good outside the eclipse phase. So that, I think, is a very interesting module. Not a perfect module, but a very interesting module. And you have the module in here, you have the glacier tokens. I like those. That's like, instead of just having empty glaciers, you have maybe something good on there. Flip it over, and you have something maybe good. Not 100% guaranteed that it's good, but it might be. And usually it is, but it depends on your play at the game, of course. And you have the little eclipse token thingy, no, rest token, sorry. When you rest, you can take a token and it has an action. That's just good, right? It's like, okay, I might want to rest this turn. Do I get extra benefit from it? Okay, that's interesting. Maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not. Definitely an interesting addition to the game. And the final one, the Mammoth module, adds again, like the Rivers and Raft, to that one where you're moving something around. It costs 2 movement, but you can move it wherever, and it really disturbs your opponent. Again, maybe to kind of balance it out, so if you're focusing very hard on this one, you can stop your opponent who's focusing very hard on animal cards from doing anything on that part of the board. It's just to take that element that was unnecessary if you just balanced your entire game. So no, I don't like that. Alright, let's do some scoring. No, wait, does it lie to you? I mean, it's, what does it say? It's does you lie to you, does it lie to you? Well, components as well. Mixing around in this one, I've been talking for such a long time. Components in this one is fucking great. You have some trays, game trays in here. Great game trays. A little bit annoying because it needs to be 100% accurately packed, but it's good. I love it. The components, the cards, the figurines, everything in this one is very much a luxury game. Love all the components here and here and here, and it's all great components. Great components all the way up there. Theme does sort of go through. I mean, the Paleo-Americans, everything you do makes sense to that, to an extent, I think. And of course, the artwork is absolutely great. The Miko, which by the way, I thought I misheard that. I thought it was like the Miko, like D-E-M-E-C-O or something, but it is legitimately the Miko. Interesting. I thought it was funny. I didn't know that. So yeah, artwork is great, components are great. Now let's talk about does it last you? It says right here, 12 and up, 1 to 4 players, 60 to 120 minutes. Of course, I have not played solo. I never play solo, but I think 2 and 3 players is pretty good. I think 4 players probably change it around. As I say, I haven't played that. I'm not going to. 12 and up, yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot of things to keep track of, so I sort of agree on this one. But in the last video, when I talked about watches, was show right over here. It's not exactly last video. Might have been last video. It depends on when I upload this one. But I talked about why in the world. Like, and again, I don't understand why this is 14 and why this is 12. But, so the age doesn't make sense for me, but this should probably be a little bit of a higher age. There's a lot of things to keep track of. And 60 to 120 minutes. Once you know the game and you know what you want to do, you go through this one in 30 minutes. Not true, but you go through it very fast because you immediately just know what you want to do. You have a starting player, like, okay, I can do this. Okay, well then I'm going to focus on that. Let's make sure to do that every turn. Then we have these cards that are drawn up. Okay, let's do this, let's do this. It's very easy to make decisions because, as I said, you just need some animals, maybe move around that one, make sure you get them on live. It's so easy to do. The eclipse phase, by the way, is interesting. The way you like determine order and then get a bunch of bonuses. It's interesting. Probably just the most boring part because you're just kind of looking around counting up points. But it's interesting. I don't know why I'm telling you. Okay, scoring time. Scores and some of these ones. Endless Winter, the base game. It's a 5. It's just a meh game for me. It does some interesting stuff, but it's just there's way too much setup. There's way too many things. Screaming. This was not a game that was ready to be individually. You are going to need at least cave paintings for this to be a good game. And because of that, I am going to give cave paintings a 10. My expansion ratings are, of course, based on the game, and then what does it add to the game. Cave paintings add some very necessary things to the game. It is a 10 out of 10. Expansion, you have the Ancestor module. I said this was the second one. I'm going to give it a 5. Interesting enough with the 2 new things, but 2 of the things are not at all interesting, so we're going to give it a 5. Risks and Rafts, I'm just going to give it a 4. I'm going to rate it below a 5 because I don't want to give it a meh. I want to give it a... it's just, it doesn't add anything, it doesn't balance the game, it just adds more things to think about and it's more to the setup. It's not that good. Talk about the modules then, real quick. Yeti, the Squirrel and Knot, I'm just going to give them 10s because again, they fit into the game perfectly well and it just very much belongs within it. Aurora Borealis also gets a 10. It's just an addition to the game that just fits in there. You don't have to think too much about it. It just fits and works perfectly well. This is also why cave paintings are good because it just fits in and you don't have to think a whole bunch more. It just fits into the game. This one makes you think a whole bunch more without fitting completely into the game. That's why it's lower. This one is just boring expansion. Then we have, of course, Canine Familiars. As I said, it's a good, interesting one. It focuses on the eclipse phase. You have to remember to take them. So I'm going to give it an 8. It's going to be an 8. It's interesting. It's a good module. You have the Ceremonial Grounds. I remember it without checking my phone. What does it say called? I'm also going to give that an 8. It's the same as the Wolves. Well, no, I'm going to give it a 7 because it draws on the worst aspect of it, which is the Burial Grounds. So I'm going to give it a 7, but it's definitely just an expansion that fits right in and works. You cannot be hungry. Don't know if you picked that up. And then the final one is going to be, what was it? The Mammoth module. I dislike that one. I'm going to give it a 4. Same reason for this one. It's not balanced. It doesn't balance the game. It doesn't add anything that's interesting. We've played it with it twice, and it's just stood in the middle. I think it moved once over 2 games. It's so uninteresting. We played it with Go 2 and 3 players. It's such an uninteresting one. It's 4, same with the reverse and rafts. It just doesn't add anything. That's my complete score of this one. So my camera cut off, but the question is, am I keeping this game? Absolutely not. the fact that people rate this above Heat Pedal to the Metal, above Flamecraft, above Creature Comforts, above Longshot the Dice Game, above Keystone North America, I believe, came out last year as well. These freaking amazing games that I really, really love. The fact that you rate this above those, I cannot understand. It's just, there's so many good things in it, but there's just so many bad things. So no, I'm not keeping this one. I am going to like try and resell it eventually. I think I just need to get 1 or 2 more reviews down, and then I might have to sell some more stuff. But yeah, definitely, I'm not keeping this one. I might auction it off, I don't know. What time is it? Okay, it's 12 o'clock. Do you want to have some lunch as well? I need some lunch as well. God damn. Anyways, so my camera cut off. That means I've been filming for over 30 minutes. That's a lot of stuff with this game. And boy, the setup is going to be terrible. But I can see my camera needs to be charged before I do that. Anyways, thank you very much for watching this episode. Until next time, bye.